Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Tour of Verbs. Well, in our previous videos, we have seen various kinds of verbs based on their functions. We started with main functions, we continued with auxiliary verbs, which included both primary auxiliaries and modals. We ended the functions by linking verbs. In today's video, we are going to see the classification of verbs based on their formations. Yes, we are here today to discuss something on regular verbs and irregular verbs. We have seen different verbs based on their functions. We categorize them into different forms. We call V1 form as the base form, V2 form as the past form, V3 form as the past participle, and V4 as the present participle form. If you take the word jump as an example, jump is the base form, jumped is the past form, jumped is the past participle form, and jumping is the present participle forms, V1 to V4. Grammarians even include the fifth form, which they call it as third person singular form, and the word for jump is jumps. Jumps is the fifth form of the verb. But let's keep the fourth and fifth forms aside for today's video. We are going to focus only on first three forms, V1, V2 and V3. Well, we have two categories of verbs based on their formations called regular and irregular verbs. What are regular verbs? Let's see the first part. A regular verb is one whose base form can be converted into the past and the past participle form by just adding D or ED. If you look at the word jump, it's a regular form because it's a regular verb because we are adding ED to convert jump into jumped, the past form, and jumped, the past participle form. Now, we have another kind of addition which we call as inflation. The word inflation is used in English to indicate the modification of a word to convert that into another form. The word inflation is used. So, the word can be inflated or changed into another form by adding D as well. For example, the word like, L-I-K-E, we just add D to that to make it past and past participle forms. Like, liked and liked. Love, loved and loved. Smile, smiled and smiled. So we are just adding D to these kind of words. The only trick is if the word ends with E, just add D to it. Like, liked, love, loved, smile, smiled. If the word doesn't end with E, then you have to add ED to that. For example, the word jump, it doesn't end with E, you add ED to that. Jumped. So look, L-O-O-K, it ends with K, add ED to that. So we just add D or ED based on whether the word ends with an E or doesn't end with an E. We have another simple exemption, the words that end with Y. There are some verbs like beautify, clarify, simplify, rectify. These words end with Y. In such case, remove that Y at the end and make it I. And as usual, add ED to that to make it into its past form and the past participle form. Beautify becomes beautified, simplify becomes simplified, clarify becomes clarified. This is how regular verbs are those whose base forms can be converted into the past form and the past participle form by adding D or ED. Now, after understanding regular verbs, it's very easy to understand what are irregular verbs. In simple words, any verb that doesn't follow this pattern of adding D or ED to convert the base form into past or past participle form is called an irregular form. There are so many irregular verbs in English. For example, give. Give is not gived. We are not adding D or ED to that. Instead, the past form becomes gave and the past participle form becomes given. So give, gave, given are completely three different words where we can't add D or ED to that. We have some words like hurt. We are again not adding ED. Hurted, there is no such word in English. There are words like bring, it becomes brought. We are not making it as bringed. There is no such word as well. So all these words which do not follow D and ED addition at the end are irregular verbs. Then we have seen some rules to convert the base form into the past and past participle form by checking whether the last letter ends with E or not, to convert that into the past and past participle. But is there any such rule for regular verbs to identify what to do to convert them into past and past participle? No. As far as irregular verbs are concerned, there are no such rules, unfortunately. That's why they are called irregular verbs. They do not follow any rules. But the good news is, we do not have many of them in English language. We hardly have 200, approximately 200 such words in English. And the only way to learn them is to continuously read the articles, the texts, to understand what are the different irregular verbs that we have in English. Irregular verbs can be again divided into 4 types. In the first type, V1, V2, V3 forms remain the same. So many words like put, V2 is put, V3 is put, hurt, hurt, hurt. So there is no change. We don't add D and ED, that is obvious, and there is no other alterations in these 3 forms. All the 3 words remain the same. And the second category is one where V1 is different and V2 and V3 are same. For example, if you take the word V1 as bring, the V2 is brought and V3 is also brought. So V2 and V3 remain the same. This is second category of irregular verbs. In the third category, we have the first form, V1 form, and V3 form are the same, and V2 is different. For example, come, came, come. Come is V1, came is V2, come is V3. So this is the third category where first form and third form are the same, but only V2 form differs. And lastly, we have all 3 words differently. That is, V1 is different from V2 and that is different from V3. A very popular example is give. Give is different from gave and that is different from given. All 3 are different. So from the first category where all 3 are same, in the second category where first form is different from second and third, and in the third category where only first and third forms remain the same and the second one is different, and in the fourth form where all the 3 forms are different. These are the different types of irregular verbs. Although there are no rules for finding out or identifying the past form and the past participle forms of the base verb in irregular verbs category, but there are some reasons why these irregular verbs exist in English. Probably the first and the strongest reason is English has imported many words from the other foreign languages. Most of the words that have come from German, so those are of German origin. German words, they have something called the concept of strong verbs. A strong verb is one which is converted in German language to its past form and past participle form by changing something called as stem vowel. If you take the word sing, the word sing, sing, which has its origin in German language, which has been imported from German language, the word sing, sing, in this the stem vowel is I, sing. So sing is called as the strong verb in German. To convert any strong verb into past form and the past participle form in German language, they just change the stem vowel. So I is changed into A, sing becomes sang. And to convert that into past participle form, they change again the stem vowel to some other vowel like sung. Sing becomes sang and sang becomes sung in V1, V2, V3 forms. So English has imported such words from other foreign languages, because of which we feel them as irregular verbs, because we are not adding D or ED. The second possible reason is one form of one verb is taken into the same form of the another verb. Look at the example, go. Go is the V1 form or the base form. Its past form is went. They're completely different. It's completely a purely an irregular verb because we are not adding d or ed. Then why did this went come here in place of go? The reason is there is another word in English, wend, W-E-N-D, for which the past tense form is went, earlier the past tense form of wend was went. The meaning of wend is the same, that is to move, to go slowly in one particular direction. That is the meaning of the word went. And the past form of that went was went, and that went is brought, and that is made as a past form of go. That's why we see no relationship in the spelling when it comes to go and went. It's not go God, it's not go God, it is go went. So the went has come from another word went within the English. So this is one possible reason why irregular verbs exist, because English within itself, it has taken verbs, the different forms of the verbs from different words. That is one reason. The third possible reason is the migration of English from one region to another region. As British moved from one place to another places and they started colonizing, English was received by different cultures and different nations, different people in different ways, and they started adopting, and they started having influence of their mother tongue on English. So for such reasons the pronunciations changed, because of which sometimes even the spellings got changed, and basically that's one of the reasons why we do not see a proper pattern from the V1 form to V3 and V2 forms. So this is where even the irregular verbs started getting added into English language. After understanding various aspects of regular and irregular verbs, I would like to conclude this video with something special about T. We have some words which are converted to their past forms and past participle forms by adding T, like learn becomes learned, burn becomes burned. Do we have learned, Learned, or is it Learnt? This is the confusion I get from some of the people, and both are right. In American English, we add ed to learn to make it past and past participle. In British English, we just add t to make it past and past participle. So learn, learned, learned in British, learn, learned, learned in US English. Hence, I was saying that there are approximately 200 irregular verbs in English. Thanks to American English, it has reduced some of the irregular verbs. Look at the word learn. Learn is actually an irregular verb according to British English, because we are not adding d or ed. So, but according to American English, learn is a regular verb because they have changed the spelling by adding ed at the end. So, in regular British English, we have approximately 200, but when it comes to American English, there are a fewer irregular verbs because they have regularized by changing the spelling of some words. This is all about the regular verbs and irregular verbs. Happy reading, because that's the only way we learn irregular verbs. Thanks for watching.